Well, as football people, I think that at some point we all need a little bit of power at some point in our lives. And well, the highlight that you're seeing there, that is Robert Jones, formerly of the Dolphins, started all of 2024 for the Dolphins. That is him blocking some power for Miami back when Mike McDaniel was the coach. He visited the 49ers facility today, and it's really, really interesting because this is not really a zone blocking guard. He visited San Francisco, though, and somebody who didn't re-sign with the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel, even though he was one of their better pass protectors, definitely their best pass protecting guard in 2024. Somebody who went to the Dallas Cowboys instead in 2025 is now on the 49ers interest list here at that fascinating left guard opening in 2026. 49ers have already signed Brett Toth, the former Philadelphia Eagle. We know that Philadelphia's offensive line runs a whole heck of a lot more power than the 49ers have in the past. Now they look at somebody like Robert Jones, who has this scouting report. Brandon Thorne does a really good job with the offensive line scouting. And he wrote this about Robert Jones leaving Miami. He's coming off of his fourth career season at first as a full-time starter at left guard, where he wins with good mass and power, who can function inside a downhill, gap-based run scheme. Gap and power, that's essentially synonymous, with zone concepts sprinkled in. This made him less than an ideal fit in Miami's offense, but his size, 322 pounds, age, he's 27 now, and ability to create a displacement are a worthwhile addition in the right system. 49ers wouldn't work this guy out for absolutely no reason. And if you remember my coverage over the course of 2025, 49ers actually got the run game going in that game against the Atlanta Falcons by running a lot more power than they had at any other point during the Shanahan era. For those of you who are new, who weren't paying attention during that time of the season, maybe new subscribers, got a lot of new people have come aboard over the course of the last few months. Zone-based rushing system relies a lot on the athleticism of linemen getting to the sides of the field, to the perimeter. And you're blocking guys in zone. So you could move from zone to zone as you're stretching out, blocking from the point of attack or from the starting point all the way to the far edges of the field. It also typically requires a lot of straight line speed from one cut running backs. So Raheem Mostert, back in his prime, really succeeded with the 49ers. They just burned everybody in 2019 running outside zone and some inside zone, but running a lot of zone with very, very fast running backs, like 4.2 type of speed from not only Raheem Mostert, but Tevin Coleman was still running really fast at the time. If you're moving to more of a power gap scheme based attack, then you're going to need linemen who can drive downfield, who could win in those man-on-man blocking situations. And, you know, it's really interesting. The 49ers in 2024, they ran outside zone 43% of the time. In 2025, the 49ers dropped down to 31.6% outside zone rate. We saw their power usage rate increase to 9%. Doesn't seem like a lot on the surface, but it was only 6% the year prior. That's a significant percentage uptick if it wasn't a big share to begin with. And they clumped a lot of the power usage into certain games where they really had to revive the run game like they did against the Atlanta Falcons. But the outside zone drop, I think, goes to really illustrate that the 49ers, they don't have Raheem Mostert-like speed from anybody, maybe except for Isaac Guerendo at the running back position anymore. And they also didn't have the perimeter blocking this past season from the receivers that they had in the past. So I think that the shift to some more interior running concepts from the 49ers made a whole heck of a lot of sense. On top of that, the 49ers now have a well-established franchise quarterback who has paced the league in passing efficiency numbers since 2022. So if you're talking about what you need to do in front of Brock Purdy, you obviously want to solidify the pass protection at spots where even a very mobile quarterback, even somebody like Purdy, who's better than anybody in the game at avoiding sacks. I mean, we've seen his pressure to sack ratio. It was absolutely elite in 2025. You want to make sure that that pressure is not coming right through the A gap, and you want to solidify those spots the offensive line. And right here, we look at Robert Jones. In 2024, when he started the whole season for the Miami Dolphins, he ranked well into the top half of pass blocking efficiency. And Robert Hunt, who was the other offensive guard for Miami, somebody who signed for big free agent money just a few years ago, he ranked in the bottom half. So the best pass protecting guard on that Miami team was Robert Jones, who just worked out for the 49ers today. Now, this is probably a health checkup. Jones missed all of 2025, was hurt in training camp for the Cowboys, suffered a fracture in his neck. It was expected to keep him out for a long time when it happened, about 3 months. He ended up just missing the entire season. 49ers probably looking at Robert Jones to see exactly where he is in terms of his ability to be physical in the NFL again. And at age 27, it's definitely worth a check-in given what he was as a player in 2024, working in a McDaniels scheme that obviously was more zone-oriented, but he was good enough to start. He wasn't, I think, suitable enough for that scheme to re-sign, so he signed with Dallas for a deal worth over $4 million per year in 2025. Got hurt in that 2025 season, and now the fact that the 49ers are willing to have him visit more than signing the player himself sends me a really interesting message about what the 49ers might be interested in running moving forward ahead of Brock Purdy. Keep in mind that the 49ers, we can go back to San Francisco history. Let's go back to the 80s and the 90s when Bob McKittrick was the offensive line coach. The late, great Bob McKittrick, who really, in many ways, revolutionized the NFL by making more out of lighter offensive linemen than we may have ever seen, and especially in the modern era of football. The 49ers went with mobile offensive linemen, nimble offensive linemen. They often did not go pass protection first with their offensive linemen. They wanted to make sure that the run game would be something they could be something they could establish to counterbalance the 49ers pass game. They wanted to be able to run plenty of play action, and they wanted to be able to block in space. And they rarely drafted offensive linemen in the first round. Harris Barton was the one exception. He ended up being a stalwart offensive tackle for the 49ers. But there came a time in the 1990s when the 49ers strategy of using a lighter offensive line became a major thorn and problem for the football team. And the team, the opponent that really was able to target and take advantage of the 49ers' weakness was the Green Bay Packers. Remember, they had the massive defensive tackle. They had Gilbert Brown. In case some of you aren't familiar with Gilbert Brown, maybe I should get a picture of Gilbert Brown, because this might be able to illustrate the bind that the 49ers got into in the mid to late 1990s with a lighter offensive line. That's Gilbert Brown. Gilbert Brown caused a whole heck of a lot of heartache for the 49ers. So did Reggie White. But I think that Reggie White, everybody knows him as a Hall of Famer who would wreak havoc coming off the edge. Gilbert Brown, though, in the middle against the lighter offensive line, you could see how that might be an issue. So what the 49ers did in 1996 and 1997, when the Packers were giving them a lot of troubles, that they upgraded the size of the guard position big time. They went to Ray Brown and Kevin Gogan, and they finally got past the Packers in the 1998 season. That was the catch two, Young to Terrell Owens, and the pass protection upgrade that the 49ers made in 97 and 98 was a very, very big part of their success. So to block this guy right here, the 49ers moved to bigger guards, and they moved to guards who could deliver more in the power sense. There's two things that you've got to look at when you're discussing offensive line play. You've got to look at the run blocking. You've got to look at the pass protection. And the 49ers have not been horrific in either aspect, but they may see that an evolution is necessary given the personnel that they also have around the offensive line. At running back, at quarterback, and out at the wide receiver positions, they may see that an evolution is necessary. And I think that the numbers, the downturn of outside zone usage for the 49ers, I think that those numbers, some of the success that they had in 2025 with some more power and some more gap-based stuff, and just the uptick in passing. I mean, this is a pass-forward offense for the 49ers now with Brock Purdy at quarterback. They're always going to want to be balanced, but the uptick in passing makes it so that pass protection forward guard is definitely somebody that the 49ers should be interested in. And obviously they are interested in this guy right here. He made a visit to the 49ers facility today. That is Robert Jones. For other 49ers news is that they are going to have a top 30 visit with a very light defensive end coming from Texas Tech, and that is Romello Height. At the NFL Combine, he weighed only 239 pounds, but he is an elite athlete when it comes to explosiveness. So we know that the 49ers are going to host 30 players. We only have a few of the players that they're going to host. I think we have 3 confirmed visits so far. 2 of them are wide receivers, Omar Cooper and Casey Concepcion. Now we know that the 49ers are going to be hosting a defensive end from what was a ferocious Texas Tech defensive line. David Bailey on the other side got a lot more attention for the Texas Tech Red Raiders, but Romello Height was the speed rusher who I think might be able to replace that vacated spot of Bryce Huff, who was a speed rusher under 250 pounds for the 49ers. Romello Height had his struggles against the run with Texas Tech. You can imagine that that would be the case given the physical profile at 6'2", 239 pounds. The relative athletic score says composite size grade, very poor. Well, not shocking to me given the fact that this guy was only 239 pounds. But the 10-foot broad jump, the 39-inch vertical, the 1-6, 10-yard split, and coming from a defensive line that wreaked a whole lot of havoc for Texas Tech this past season, I could see why the 49ers might be interested in Romello Height. Now let's go to the 49ers depth chart and let's take a look at the offensive line. And, you know, we can talk about Robert Jones visiting today. There's a reason that up until a couple days ago, I had this left guard position completely vacated because I wasn't sure if the 49ers were thinking about Brett Toth as a starter or as a backup. He started 4 games for the Philadelphia Eagles last year. He played well at both left guard and the center position, but it could well be that if the 49ers like what they see from somebody like a Ryan Jones, a Robert Jones, they could have Brett Toth still as a backup like the Philadelphia Eagles had. And somebody like Robert Jones could theoretically fit into the left guard position. Also, Joel Bitonio remains a free agent. Now, we're not sure if Joel's going to retire or not, but Joel Bitonio has been a very, very good guard for a long time with the Cleveland Browns. His career actually dates back to when Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator with Cleveland back in 2014. And I think at the center of everything, whether Kyle Shanahan runs more power, more gap scheme, or if he sticks with outside zone, and I think he's obviously always going to run a lot of outside zone. But at the center of everything is the fundamental truth that the 49ers have to run the football well enough to disguise their intentions to pass. That's what the Shanahan system is predicated on. And Joel Bitonio a few years ago, so you're going to notice that he's still talking about Baker Mayfield as Cleveland's quarterback, but that's very clearly not the case anymore. But a few years ago, he talked about the offensive system that he was running in Cleveland, and he invoked a lot of Kyle Shanahan's name there. And I think that he gave great insight into what the fundamental goal of a Kyle Shanahan offensive line is, and by extension, what the fundamental goal of guards in a Kyle Shanahan offensive system are. So this is from Cleveland.com. let's take a look into Joel Bitonio talking about Kyle Shanahan, all while keeping in mind that 49ers left guard position, at least the starting spot, might still be vacant.
30s. I think, there's probably 6 or 7 teams that kind of run this outside zone system. I think Shanahan's probably the most entrenched in it, where he runs it all the time. But I think a lot of similarities to that system, and you get the boots off of the runs. It's the marriage of the run and pass, right? Like, we want to make the runs look just like the passes, the play actions just like the runs, and it all kind of works itself together. And I think, I'm excited to get back in it. I thought we had a good offense my rookie year. Obviously, we had some quarterback difficulties and things of that nature, but I think we showed that it can be a successful offense. And then, obviously, Shanahan's taking the Falcons and the Niners to the Super Bowl with the offense. So there's definitely, a chance to do some things on offense that we're excited to do. And then Baker, I think he works in this offense great. He's going to be able to sell those runs and set up in the pocket. And it's not just drop back passing 50 times a game, which is a benefit to the O-line too. If you can sell the run and play action and boot and run keepers off the run game, it's going to give Baker another second or two to have guys get open and run routes. And I think you've seen that with the big shots that, a team like the Niners, a team like Minnesota took last year, where they have these guys, Diggs and Thielen and George Kittle, all these guys running, down the field open because they're so worried about stopping the run. And if you look at the stats kind of from the last couple of years, Baker's actually been a really good rollout quarterback and a quarterback that's, been able to throw off the run and stuff like that. So I think this offense fits him really well, and I'm excited to, get some reps and see him in it.
So that's Joel Bitonio, who might be retiring. We're not sure yet. He didn't give the Cleveland Browns word one way or the other before his contract was set to void. So his contract has voided. Bitonio's been a very good guard in this game consistently. He's stayed healthy. He's been solid, and he's worked in literally a Shanahan system to begin his career. Shanahan was the OC when the Browns drafted him. In fact, the center next to Joel Bitonio, his first year in the NFL in 2014, was none other than Alex Mack. And Bitonio, again, if he's out there, it wouldn't shock me if the 49ers made a run at him, because he's a guy that can block the zone scheme and he could block the power scheme, even at an advanced age. Would be a big upgrade over what the 49ers have had at the left guard position. And on top of that, San Francisco today might have sent out another hint by hosting Robert Jones, more of a power blocking left guard. I showed you his highlight at the start of the video. They hosted him today to probably gauge where he's at in health-wise, given the fact that he missed that 2025 season with the Cowboys with the fractured neck. But if that is healed, Robert Jones is still only 26 years old, or 27 years old. He was 26 the last time we saw him. He was in the top half of the NFL's pass blocking efficiency metrics for the guard position. And I think somebody that could help the 49ers in a way that might echo a little bit with the past, right? We talk so much about San Francisco needing to overcome Gilbert Brown and the Green Bay Packers in the late 90s. Well, they picked up Kevin Gogan, they picked up Ray Brown, and now we can talk about somebody like Robert Jones, at least in terms of the theory, at least in terms of what the 49ers might be looking to shift toward at that guard position. So I figured this would make fans happy. They want investments in the offensive line. And the 49ers have made some real depth investments, at least in the offensive line, with Vidarian Lowe and Brett Toth. They're looking to make another investment in Trent Williams. That obviously would anchor left tackle. But we're wondering, there are several, I don't want to call it ticking time bombs, but in a way, they might be. With Trent Williams, he's going to be 38 years old this season. Jake Brendel's going to be 34. You've got to figure out the future of center if you're the 49ers. You've done a good job shoring up the right side of the offensive line with players who should have plenty of shelf life left in Dominic Pooney and Colton McKivitz. But there is a gaping hole right now at that left guard position. Either Connor Colby steps up and takes that job, but that would take a big improvement over last year, or Brett Toth gives you a little bit of a bridge at left guard. But I think that if you're the 49ers, philosophically, what you do at left guard, center, and, by extension, left tackle, because Trent Williams obviously doesn't have a whole lot of time left, maybe 3 years left. We'll see how that works out with the 49ers, but what you do at these positions of near-term question stylistically and philosophically is going to set a tone for the long run in front of Brock Purdy. That's why Kyle Shanahan said at the NFL Combine that left guard is a position that the 49ers have to take very seriously this offseason. Toth is a candidate, Colby is a candidate, and who knows, maybe Robert Jones added by San Francisco to a visit list today. Not added onto the team, but he was on the NFL Transaction Wire's visit list. Maybe this is a real hint of the direction that the 49ers are going. What do you guys think? Do you want some more power gap scheme running? Do you want more of a pass protection focus at that left guard position? I'm going to go ahead and turn this into an interactive show. We can take a look at some of your comments on this beautiful Monday afternoon. So Wolfson here says that bargain backups are not a serious investment. So you need more than just 5 starters on a team. Let's start that off really fast. If you only invested in 5 starting offensive linemen and you don't properly pick your backups, that team is not making the Super Bowl. I don't think there's ever been a team in the modern era, at least, that has made a Super Bowl, much less won one, without quality offensive linemen that go beyond the starting 5. So you have to take the investment beyond the starting 5 seriously. Brett Toth, the 49ers are paying Brett Toth more, significantly more, than they did their starting left guard, Ben Bartch, last year. So then you could start to have the argument about, okay, well, how much investment in a theoretical backup guard means that he has a chance to flex into a starting guard week 1. And since Toth is already at much more money than Ben Bartch was at last season, Bartch was basically at the league minimum. Toth is over $2 million guaranteed. So it's almost 2x. Since you're already at that point, you have to question, and he's had success starting for Philadelphia on the interior line. You have to question exactly what the 49ers plan there is, because starter is not out of the question, right? Then beyond that, you have to continue to watch what the 49ers do, and you have to continue to watch who's out there. And, you know, when you say, well, Joel Bitonio would be a big time investment, I don't even know what Joel Bitonio's plans for 2026 are. By extension, I don't know what Joel Bitonio would demand to play for in 2026. There are some guys who are willing to end their careers in a familiar place with a familiar coach, and Joel Bitonio started with Kyle Shanahan back in 2014. They're willing to end at a discount. There are some guys who are not willing to end at a discount. I think that Joey Bosa is a good example of that. Joey Bosa is going to want to sign for the best contract possible. I wouldn't expect a discount just because he plays or would play in San Francisco with Nick Bosa. And a lot of NFL guys are going to think that way, and that is 100% their prerogative. There's nothing to attack or criticize about that. This is a profession. This is a business, and this is something that is rather fleeting in the larger picture of things. The average NFL career length is only about 3 years old. So guys should absolutely try to maximize their earnings if that is what their desire is. So I don't know where Joel Bitonio stands on all of that. I don't even know if Joel Bitonio wants to retire. It seems that he might not even know right now. He might still be sitting back and deciding. But you can only invest what is actually out there available to you. And the 49ers are trying to pay Trent Williams right now. Massive investment. That's been one of the largest investments in the history of the NFL along the O-line. You can invest draft capital. 49ers have done some of that. They might do a little bit more of that coming up. I've maintained throughout this whole time that the 49ers look to have something up their sleeve at left guard. And with Robert Jones coming to visit today, I think that further validates that line of thinking. Because you do sign Toth, who's an extremely intriguing backup at the very least because of his history playing left guard and center. You sign Toth to give you options. You haven't re-signed Ben Bartch. You obviously let Spencer Burford walk to the Raiders. That left guard position was such an issue for the 49ers at different points of last year that I definitely look at this in conjunction with Trent Williams and the fact that he's going to be 38 years old, and the fact that a long-term succession plan there is something I think the 49ers would love to start if given the opportunity. I see several potential creative paths for the 49ers moving forward, and I see evidence that the 49ers are potentially seeking those creative paths. Now, one of them could be drafting a left tackle. I don't know if it's Caleb Lomu or if it's trading up for Monroe Freeling, which seems much less likely. But one path could be drafting a left tackle, inserting him into left guard for the short term, letting Trent Williams play out the rest of his career, maybe 2 more guaranteed years for Trent Williams, and then pivoting with that left guard, moving to left tackle. The 49ers have actually never done something like that, though, so I wouldn't bank on it, but it is one option. Another option is that you take a look at a player like this, like a Robert Jones, who just visited today. You beef up in terms of the powers and the gap scheme, and you continue evolving the offense, which has already seen some signs of offensive line evolution over the course of the past couple of years. And you plug a player like this, not necessarily this player, but a player like this, into that left guard position for the short term. Brett Toth, coming from a power-based system in Philadelphia, could also be somebody who fits in the short term as a starting left guard. Maybe the 49ers would prefer to have him as a backup. I think that would be advisable since, as you've heard me say time and time again, any good NFL offensive line, like a Super Bowl caliber NFL offensive line, it's not just about the starting 5. It's also about the depth at spots 6 and 7 and maybe even spot 8 beyond that. You're not going to win a Super Bowl without depth, like playable depth that extends beyond the top 5 offensive linemen. Kurt thinks that he really feels that after free agency, all of the 49ers draft picks will be backups. I mean, that's an ideal world. If you can build your team up enough through free agency and have a good enough roster entering the NFL draft to where you don't need to start any rookies, that is the definition of a win now setup for the 49ers. Let's take a look at Kurt's theory here. He might be onto something. The one spot where I have big questions, and I'll even shade it in gray, as I did last week, is left guard. I'm not sure what they're thinking at left guard, but I do feel that something might be up the 49ers sleeves, and I've given you all the data. I've given you the news of Robert Jones visiting the team today. Maybe they do still sign a veteran like Bitonio or Robert Jones to fill the left guard position. Maybe it is Brett Toth. Maybe they do run the rookie left guard moving to left tackle later on maneuver. I don't know. And I'm going to continue just honestly covering this and giving you guys the strategy and the possibilities for the 49ers moving forward. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. I mean, if everybody stays healthy, I can see where the 49ers would slot this. Defensive line, Bosa, Collins, Odigizua, Michael Williams. You could slide Keon White in there as an interior pass rusher at times. All possible, right, for the 49ers. Then you look at the linebacker position. You've got Fred Warner, you've got Dre Greenlaw, and D. Winters. If all 3 of these guys are healthy for San Francisco in 2026, I think that you've got a really, really good linebacking core. Last seen together, these 3 players on the field against the Rams in December of 2024. And over that first half, they let up hardly anything. I mean, it was a very, very solid linebacking core. I have questions about the safety position. So maybe the 49ers sign somebody, maybe they don't. Safety, though, could be a spot where they get somebody who starts immediately, I think. Marquise Siegel, it's going to be his second year with the team. Different defensive coordinator, though. He didn't cover well last year. He was very athletic, and I thought he was a good tackler in space, and I thought he brought a lot of juice to the 49ers. The ball skills have to get better. They might be set as far as starters at corner go, and we'll see what the thoughts from the new regime on Malik Mustafa are. But safety and left guard remain the biggest question marks for the 49ers, in my opinion. Greg says power run and passing, or I'm guessing pass blocking, are needed. What do I think about it? Well, I think Greg is posing a question to everybody else. I agree with you. I think they need to, and they started doing this here recently. They need to diversify the run blocking. I think diversifying the run blocking, you heard from Joel Bitonio. And Joel Bitonio is an awesome resource because he has played for Stefanski, but he played for Shanahan back in 2014. He understands and he played next to Alex Mack, but he understands what needs to happen for the 49ers offense to click at full cylinders under Kyle Shanahan. And what they need to do, they can be a pass first offense. It doesn't matter. It could be run first. It could be pass first. But if you want to unlock maximum passing efficiency, and it doesn't matter who your receivers are, that you can have excellent receivers too, you have to be able to sell the run at the line of scrimmage. You can pass 80% of the time. They're not going to do that, but you can pass 80% of the time. But if you sell the possibility of run at the line of scrimmage, that passing is going to come easier because guys are going to have more room downfield. The defense has to think that a run can come at any time. The play actions have to sell. And it's not just play fakes from the quarterback. It is the offensive linemen selling the possibility of run blocking out of their stance to put that into the defense's mind. And if the defense bites in that way, well, then all of a sudden you're going to have more room to operate with wide receivers and tight ends roaming downfield. Joe Bitonio, I thought, explained it beautifully. There's nuance that comes with what offensive linemen do. And gap scheme or zone scheme blocking, it's all the same at the end of the day if the defense thinks that a run might be coming, if they have to account for that. Shanahan can make passing magic work off of a gap scheme or a zone scheme base. I think, in fact, he probably needs and has needed and is doing this, has diversified the type of running that the 49ers are bringing because he knows that is what is required for a credible rushing threat to exist. Ryan says, remember how the 49ers bullied the Packers and Mostert had 220 yards? They were helpless. Yes, I mean, that was the peak of outside zone under Kyle Shanahan. Mostert, 4 touchdowns. The 49ers ran for, I think, 6.8 yards per carry. The number might have been even higher, but it dropped down at garbage time when the 49ers were just running the clock out. They didn't need to pass in that game because Green Bay was completely helpless. But if they did need to pass in that game, and they did a few times, then stuff was open downfield because Green Bay was overplaying the run. That was the height of the Kyle Shanahan outside zone attack. By 2021, the next time they were in the playoffs, they had to pass a lot more. They, in 2019, had an insane amount of speed with which they hit the edges between Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman. By 2021, yeah, Deebo Samuel was fast, but he was also playing multiple positions. He was a complete bulldozer. They did have to throw a whole heck of a lot more in 2021 to do what they needed to do. And they made it all the way to the NFC Championship game in 2021. The Brock Purdy era started in 2022. The year with the embarrassment of offensive riches was 2023. Now the pass protection wasn't as good in 2023 for the 49ers. That was really interesting, right? They ranked number 26 in pass block win rate in 2023. It ended up doing them in at certain parts of the Super Bowl when the Chiefs got a bunch of unblocked pressures, especially on some of the Steve Spagnuolo blitzes. And of course, you had the big mix-up at right guard on the critical third down with Spencer Burford, and Chris Jones came in unblocked. Ever since 2023, the pass blocking has actually gotten better for the 49ers. But I think that we've seen a general run blocking regression over the course of the past couple of years, not just with the offensive line, but with the entire blocking apparatus for San Francisco. And you wonder, okay, how are you going to get this back on track to where you've got a top 5, top 10 run game? Because the Rams had a top 5 run game in front of Matthew Stafford last year. The Rams actually got bigger along their offensive line. They focused a little bit more on diversification of blocking schemes over the course of the past couple seasons. I think it's paid off for LA. And I think that's something that paid off in smaller increments for the 49ers last year. But given this news today, as we're reading the tea leaves, I think it's something that they're going to continue trying to push moving forward. This is a good point. McCaffrey would be much more effective if the opposing defense didn't already know he was getting the ball every snap. Well, I'll tell you what, getting Mike Evans should help with that issue. And I agree with you that there was a lot of focus on Christian McCaffrey last season in both the run and the pass game, and that is a focus that the 49ers want to take off of Christian McCaffrey moving forward. Need Kenyon Sadiq, and I think who was it today? Was it Todd McShay? I think Todd McShay has now also put Kenyon Sadiq, the very athletic Oregon tight end, in his mock draft coming over to the 49ers. And it would be crazy to me if Kenyon Sadiq was available up until number 27, but it's also possible the 49ers trade up a few spots. That would help the 49ers in big ways because he can block and he's athletic enough. He for sure is. He's the most athletic tight end prospect since Vernon Davis, whom the 49ers picked, but much higher up. He could help in the pass game. And if you can help the ambidexterity of the offense, not left and right, I'm talking ambidexterity between run and pass. If you can help further that cause because you can threaten in both ways, you fundamentally give Kyle Shanahan a chance to flex his muscles as a play caller. And even if he doesn't last until pick number 27, there's a chance he lasts to pick 20. If he lasts to pick 20, well, all of a sudden the 49ers might have enough ammo to trade up. Mike also thinks the 49ers might trade down because Ty Simpson could be a target of the Arizona Cardinals. And a team, if they pick a quarterback, you want your value. You want to pick him in the first round. So you have the potential fifth-year option for contractual purposes. So maybe the 49ers spot at number 27 is valuable to a team like Arizona, and maybe the 49ers could package some picks and trade down. There are so many opportunities for the 49ers, like different ways they can go with this NFL draft. I would not get married to 1, 2, or even 3 different potential paths in the first round. Obviously, another one, and this is a potential third-round grade, Romello Height. 49ers are going to host him on that 30 visit. The very fast defensive lineman coming out of Texas Tech. Be great for the 49ers if the Cardinals take Ty Simpson. Be even better if Arizona had a trade with the 49ers to get into a good position around number 27 to take Ty Simpson. Kurt thinks that the 49ers are more likely to trade down than up. I think that anything is possible, and I'm not going to take sides as to what they're going to do in the draft because at pick number 27, we could be in for a lot of different surprises from San Francisco. All right, any more questions? We've got the news with Ryan Jones. We've got the news with Romello Height. We have a big video from this morning talking about the Seattle Seahawks re-signing JSN. The Rams might have to be next with Puka Nacua. And the 49ers are happy they got their bargains with Mike Evans and Christian Kirk. A lot happening, though, around the NFL still, even a full 2 weeks after the legal tampering window of free agency opened up. This is very true. Maybe I pin this comment up here forever. Whether the 49ers trade up or down is situational depending on what happens with other teams. I'm like the bus driver, and I'm just going to point at that sign. The draft starts a month from now, and I'm going to point at the sign that Ryan Jones here made. Whether they trade up or down is situational depending on what other teams do. I think that I accidentally once today called Robert Jones, who visited the 49ers today. I think that I accidentally once called Robert Jones, pictured here, Ryan Jones. But the reason that happened is because Ryan Jones makes a bunch of good comments, and I got Ryan Jones' name mixed up with Robert Jones' name in my head. I did absolutely do that just a minute ago. But that's why. This guy, not Ryan Jones, Robert Jones, visited San Francisco today, as first reported on my X feed. You can go check it out, but I'm glad that you're with us on YouTube. In fact, if you're here on YouTube, we started the channel 5 years ago today. 5 years ago today. I started the channel to tell everybody that the 49ers were going to draft Trey Lance at number 3. Did it end up being a good decision? Maybe not, but it was something that I thought the 49ers would do. I didn't endorse or denigrate the decision. I was just driven crazy by the fact that the media was saying they were going to pick Mac Jones, who's now a 49er. Crazy. Time really is a flat circle though, right? Everything did come full circle. But I wanted to create a channel 5 years ago today to let everybody know that the 49ers would pick Trey Lance. Now, the problem is we didn't have 101,588 subscribers then. No, sorry, 101,591 subscribers. 3 of you subscribed in the 5 seconds that I said that sentence, which is really cool. Maybe 3 of you should subscribe now while I continue talking with this next sentence. But at the time, we had lives with like 22 people on them. Mike wasn't even on board yet as the producer. But those of you who were able to watch, the 22 of you in the crowd 5 years ago, would have known that the 49ers were taking Trey Lance at the time. It was good intel. Now, 5 years later, we can tally up what a ride it's been. 101,591 subscribers. We've had 112 million views over the 5 years of this channel. That's a lot. And that doesn't include shorts. And Mike does a great job with some of those shorts now. So thank you to those of you who have been part of the journey. Why don't you hit that subscribe button right now? We are currently on Highway 101, 101,000 subscribers. And I know that we told you the 49ers were going to draft Trey Lance 5 years ago when nobody, aside 22 of you, were watching. Well, today we'll tell you that Robert Jones has visited San Francisco. Not quite as big of news, but still good intel. Good intel as the 49ers evolve into the future. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button to celebrate 5 years, and we'll talk to you very soon. Next time that the 49ers have an update, which I think is going to be fairly soon because news is coming fast these days of free agency. Talk to you guys in a bit. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for the 5 years. It's been a lot of fun.